You won't believe what just happened with Family Matters star Darius McCrary. The man who once played the charming, funny Eddie Winslow was now standing in a courtroom facing some of the most serious accusations of his life. Let me tell you, this wasn't just another celebrity drama. This was real, raw, and shocking. Earlier this month, Darius found himself in a San Diego courtroom, fighting back against felony child support charges that had suddenly turned his world upside down. He stood there, firm and frustrated, saying he didn't owe a single dollar. In his words, the Michigan court system had no authority over him. It sounded bold, almost unbelievable, but this was Darius, refusing to back down even when the odds were against him. This is how everything began. On October 5th, police near the California-Mexico border stopped Darius during what seemed like an ordinary day, but destiny took an unexpected turn. While checking his records, the officers found a felony warrant issued by the state of Michigan. The warrant was for failing to appear at a child support hearing. Within minutes, Darius McCrary, once a beloved TV star, was in handcuffs. The news spread like wildfire, and fans everywhere were stunned. How could this happen? Why would Darius be arrested over a case he claimed didn't even exist? But here is the shocking part. Darius didn't try to hide. He didn't beg for bail. He faced the judge and said, with confidence, "I owe nothing. My son is an adult, and Michigan has no legal control over me." At 49 years old, Darius had seen enough of Hollywood fame and public judgment. But this time, he decided to fight his own battle. When the judge asked if he wanted a lawyer, Darius said no. He represented himself in court, a risky move that immediately caught everyone's attention. He even identified himself as a sovereign citizen, claiming that the laws of Michigan didn't apply to him. His tone was firm, his body language calm, but defiant. "My right to due process has been trampled," he told the court. His words echoed through the room, filled with emotion and frustration. It was clear he wasn't going to let anyone make him a villain without a fight. The judge then asked whether cameras could be allowed inside the courtroom, but Darius refused. He said he didn't want his other children dragged into the media mess. For a brief moment, people saw a different side of him, a father trying to protect his family from the chaos of public attention. But this is where it gets interesting. Darius's representative stepped forward and explained that this entire situation was a misunderstanding. The complaint, they said, came from the mother of Darius's oldest son, Zechariah, who was already 18. According to them, Darius didn't owe any child support because Zechariah was legally an adult and had a trust fund that Darius had been paying into every month. But the Michigan court didn't see it that way. They claimed Darius owed more than $95,000 in unpaid child support, and that number shocked everyone. The case, according to reports, came from a missed court hearing in June 2024. Darius's team argued that he never intentionally skipped the court date. In fact, they claimed the notice arrived just 3 days before the hearing and was sent to a P.O. box he barely checked. And the craziest part, at that very same time, Darius had reportedly tested positive for COVID-19. A doctor's note confirming his illness was submitted after the hearing date, but by then, it was already too late. The system had moved forward and a warrant was issued. At the time of his arrest, Darius wasn't hiding from anyone. His team said he was actually heading to Tijuana for a project to help build homes for the homeless. Imagine that. A man accused of not supporting his own child was on his way to help people without homes. The irony was painful, almost poetic. His representative said the arrest was nothing more than a misunderstanding, a clash between miscommunication, bad timing, and a flawed system. But even so, Darius was now being held without bond, facing possible extradition back to Michigan. The once loved actor had turned into a man fighting for his reputation, his freedom, and his truth. Social media began buzzing. Some fans defended him, saying the system was unfair. Others criticized him, pointing to his past legal troubles. But one thing was certain. This was not the Darius McCrary the world remembered from Family Matters. The same man who once played the cool, confident son on TV was now caught in a real-life battle that felt straight out of a courtroom drama. And as people watched from the sidelines, waiting for the next headline, no one knew which way this story would turn next. Because in this case, destiny truly had other plans. You won't believe how fast things began to spiral after Darius McCrary's arrest. What seemed like a small misunderstanding soon turned into a full-blown legal storm. Let me tell you, when the Michigan authorities got involved, the situation became even more complicated. They claimed Darius wasn't just behind on payments. They accused him of skipping multiple hearings, ignoring court orders, and refusing to take responsibility. Each missed payment, they said, counted as a separate felony. In total, he now faced 4 felony charges, all tied to child support. But here is the shocking part. Darius kept saying over and over again that he didn't owe a penny, that the court was chasing the wrong man for the wrong reason. This is where it gets interesting. Darius's representative released a statement to the press explaining that everything had been twisted. They said his son, Zechariah, the one at the center of the case, was already 18 years old. He wasn't a minor who needed support anymore. He's a grown man with his own trust fund, the rep said. Darius contributes to it every month. If that was true, then why was the court demanding nearly $95,000 in payments? The rep blamed it all on paperwork errors, outdated records, and miscommunication between states. According to them, the Michigan Child Support Office failed to update their system after Zechariah became an adult. But destiny took an unexpected turn, and that small oversight had now landed Darius behind bars. Meanwhile, the media began digging deeper into his past. Reporters found that this wasn't the first time Darius had been in trouble over child support. Back in 2015, he had been arrested in Michigan for non-payment, but he quickly resolved it by paying $5,500. Then in 2023, another case popped up. That time, he allegedly owed $52,788, though he was released on bond after agreeing to GPS monitoring. It was starting to look like history was repeating itself, and not in a good way. But Darius's team insisted that this time was different. He's not running, he's not hiding, and he's not refusing to pay, the rep told reporters. He's being targeted by a broken system that doesn't see the full picture. But here's the craziest part. Darius said he never even received the court notice for the hearing he supposedly missed. His rep explained that the letter was mailed only 3 days before the date and was sent to an old P.O. box. On top of that, Darius was sick with COVID-19 during that same week. They even had a doctor's note, but it arrived too late to stop the warrant. To make things worse, when he was arrested, he wasn't trying to escape to Mexico, as some rumors suggested. He was on his way to Tijuana for a charity project to help build homes for the homeless. Imagine that. A man being accused of not caring for his own child was actually traveling to help families without homes. The contrast couldn't have been more dramatic. As the courtroom drama continued, Darius's attitude became the talk of the media. People said he seemed calm but frustrated, like a man tired of being misunderstood. He stood before the judge, speaking for himself, and insisted that Michigan had no legal control over him. He called himself a sovereign citizen, someone who believed that the state couldn't interfere in his private affairs. My rights have been violated again and again, he told the court. Those who were present said his words carried both anger and exhaustion, like someone who had been fighting this battle for years. And yet, despite all the chaos, Darius's focus seemed to be on his family. He refused to allow cameras inside the courtroom, saying he didn't want his other children to become part of the public spectacle. It was a small moment of protection in the middle of a storm. But the internet wasn't so kind. Social media users started debating whether he was being honest or just trying to dodge responsibility. Some fans said, Eddie Winslow is just down on his luck, leave him alone. Others weren't so forgiving, claiming he's been doing this for years. Everyone had an opinion, but no one knew the full truth. And that's what made this story so complicated. Was Darius a victim of a faulty system, or was he simply repeating the same mistakes over and over again? What makes this story different is that it wasn't just about money, it was about power, pride, and a man's reputation. Every word spoken in that courtroom could either clear his name or destroy it completely. The line between truth and lies had never been blurrier. As the hearing dragged on and the judge listened carefully, people watching from the outside could only wonder what would happen next. You won't believe how tense things became as the hearing continued. The air inside that courtroom was thick with pressure. Everyone could see that Darius McCrary wasn't just fighting a legal case, he was fighting for his name, his dignity, and the last bit of control over his own story. Let me tell you, this was no longer about numbers or documents. This had turned into an emotional war between a man and the system he said betrayed him. Darius stood there holding his ground, refusing to back down. "I've always provided for my children," he said firmly, his voice echoing through the room, "but I won't be punished for something that's not true." The courtroom stayed silent for a moment after that statement. Even the judge looked slightly taken aback by Darius's boldness. But here is the shocking part. While Darius was speaking with confidence, the prosecution came prepared with files and old records that painted a very different picture. They listed payments that had been missed over the years, pointed out delays, and presented evidence showing unpaid balances that added up to that staggering $95,000. The documents didn't lie, but neither did Darius's emotion. He shook his head slowly and said, "These papers don't tell the full story." It was a battle between facts on paper and a man's belief in his innocence. This is where it gets interesting. Darius's representatives stepped in to clarify what had gone wrong in the earlier years. They explained that when Darius's acting career slowed down, he faced financial instability, but he still continued contributing to his children's care through other means, things that weren't always recorded officially. He'd set up a trust fund, paid for his son's education, and sent money directly rather than through the system. But destiny took an unexpected turn when his ex-partners filed claims that didn't match those private payments. The result was a pile of unpaid records that made Darius look irresponsible, even when he wasn't. Social media was on fire during this time. Everyone had something to say about Eddie Winslow, the same character who had once been America's favorite son. Some called him reckless, while others said he was a victim of a system designed to fail fathers. But what made this story different was that Darius didn't run from it. He faced the humiliation, the handcuffs, the endless headlines, all while standing by his belief that he was innocent. "This isn't about money," he told reporters outside the courtroom once. "This is about respect and truth." But the craziest part was still to come. Reporters began uncovering older details from his personal life that added even more fuel to the controversy. Back in 2019, Darius had been ordered to pay over $1,300 a month in child support for his daughter Zoe, from his marriage to former Harlem Globetrotter Tammy Bronner. That case had also included accusations of domestic issues, accusations Darius always denied. Each of these past cases painted a picture that wasn't easy for him to erase. The headlines made him look like a repeat offender, but his supporters argued that the system had marked him unfairly for years. As the arguments went back and forth, Darius's frustration grew. He felt like he was speaking, but no one was listening. "Every time I try to move forward," he told the court, "someone finds a way to drag me back." His words showed exhaustion, the kind that comes from years of being misunderstood. Still, he tried to keep his composure. The judge remained quiet, occasionally glancing through the documents while the lawyers debated. The atmosphere was thick with tension, as if everyone in that courtroom knew they were witnessing more than just a legal battle. They were watching a man's life being put on trial. And then something unexpected happened. Darius's doctor's note was finally reviewed. confirming that he indeed tested positive for COVID-19 at the time of his missed court hearing. It was a small win in a big storm, but it shifted the mood. For the first time, some people began to wonder if maybe Darius was telling the truth all along. Maybe, just maybe, the system really did move too fast before giving him a fair chance. The whispers around the courtroom grew louder, and the media outside started to question whether the arrest had been necessary at all. But Darius knew that even with that small victory, the fight was far from over. He was still in custody, still facing extradition to Michigan, and still being judged by the public who didn't know the full story. Yet, as he stood there, calm but unbroken, one thing became clear. Darius McCrary wasn't done fighting. He wasn't just defending himself from legal accusations. He was fighting to reclaim who he used to be before all this chaos began. You won't believe how the story unfolded from there. After weeks of legal chaos and endless media noise, the tension around Darius McCrary's case only grew stronger. The courtroom doors had barely closed before the public began debating every little detail. Let me tell you, everyone had a version of the truth, and none of them matched. Some believed Darius was a man being crushed by a flawed system. Others saw him as someone who never learned from his past mistakes. But here is the shocking part. Even with his reputation hanging by a thread, Darius stayed silent outside the court. He didn't post on social media, didn't give interviews, and didn't defend himself publicly. For someone who once lived under the spotlight, that silence spoke louder than any statement ever could. This is where it gets interesting. Behind the scenes, Darius's team was working nonstop to fix what they called a giant misunderstanding. They pushed for a review of the Michigan records, arguing that the system had been counting payments that were already made in another form. They even showed evidence of direct deposits to his son's account, the same son who was now legally an adult. But destiny took an unexpected turn once again. The Michigan court refused to drop the case until all hearings were complete, meaning Darius could still be extradited to face those charges back home. The man who once played America's favorite TV son was now trapped in a legal nightmare that didn't seem to have an end. Meanwhile, fans on social media kept the conversation alive. Some users joked about the irony, referencing his old Family Matters role. Didn't Eddie Winslow get locked up in a TV episode too? One person wrote. Others defended him passionately, saying the media was too quick to attack Black fathers without knowing the full truth. One post went viral saying he's not perfect, but he's trying to do right. The system just won't let him. The debates were endless, emotional, and divided. And the craziest part was nobody could say for sure who was right. Through all of this, Darius stayed calm. Those who saw him during court appearances said he looked tired but composed, almost like someone who had made peace with the chaos around him. His representative revealed that Darius's biggest concern wasn't the money or even the charges, it was his children. He didn't want them growing up seeing headlines calling their father a criminal. He's hurt, the rep said quietly to the press, because no matter what he says, people believe the worst first. That simple statement hit fans deeply. For the first time, the conversation shifted from judgment to empathy. Maybe this wasn't just about fame and failure. Maybe it was about a man trying to protect his family while the world watched him fall apart. But here's what makes this story different. Darius's life had always been a reflection of both success and struggle. From being a 90s sitcom star to battling legal troubles, he had seen both sides of fame. Yet, through every controversy, one thing never changed: his determination to rise again. Even from behind bars, he talked about rebuilding his life, focusing on charity, and giving back once he was free. It was almost as if he wanted to turn his pain into purpose. Whether people believed him or not didn't seem to matter anymore. He was no longer fighting for fame. He was fighting for peace. As the court prepared for the final decision, one question echoed everywhere. Would Darius McCrary be proven innocent, Or would he face years of consequences for something he claimed he didn't do? Nobody knew the answer. The only thing everyone agreed on was that this story had taken turns no one expected. From a Hollywood success story to a man sitting in a courtroom defending his name, Darius's journey showed how quickly life could change. The world had watched Eddie Winslow grow up on screen, but now they were watching Darius McCrary face real life, raw, unfiltered, and painfully human. In the end, as the lights outside the courtroom dimmed and reporters packed up their cameras, one thing became clear. Destiny truly took an unexpected turn for Darius McCrary. His story wasn't just about controversy, it was about survival, redemption, and the fight to be heard in a world too quick to judge. Whether guilty or innocent, one truth remained. His battle had reminded everyone that even the ones who once made us laugh could be hiding the deepest pain behind their smiles.